The speed by which from the formation of the Progeria Research Foundation to the identification of the mutation to the testing of experimental drugs in animal models to show that they get better, to the formation of the clinical trial, which happened really in a very short period of time, less than a decade, is incredible, really. If you think about, we've known about diabetes, for example, in children now for more than 100 years. And it's really, it took 50 years for the first treatment to become available, and they're still waiting for the next big advance. To some extent, we've almost started to leapfrog that by many, many decades. When the original mutation for Progeria was discovered, it was recognized very early that the mutation affected a process called farnesylation, something that normal proteins need to do to attach themselves into the membrane. And unfortunately, children with progeria have a mutation that allows that farnesylation to attach to a protein to get stuck into the membrane, but it can't be undone. And by virtue of getting stuck in the membrane, makes the cell begin to become abnormal, both in shape and in function. This process of farnesylation is not unique to the protein associated with progeria. It's also involved in a number of other proteins that tell cells when to divide and where to move to, and thus has been very important as a major target in cancer. When we first began the concept of developing a clinical trial, my program had a lot of expertise in the drugs for farnesylation inhibition, treatment of children with brain cancer, and the discovery that the mutation of this disease related to the same basic molecular process meant that the two could come together. Progeria is often referred to as the premature aging syndrome, in part because when you look at these children, they have many of the characteristics of what we think of as elderly people. As people age, their skin gets thin, so you can start to see a lot of the veins, something that's characteristic, in part because there's not a lot of fat under the skin. That's one of the reasons. That obviously they lose their hair, and as many people age, both men, less so with women, but certainly true in women, you start to lose a lot of your hair. They are often, because of the contractures, the way the bones and the joints begin to tighten up, they often have a hunched over appearance, something that we frequently associate with elderly people. But most importantly, these children at the age of, an average age of around 12, die of heart attacks and strokes, the kinds of things that are uncommon except in our elderly grandparents. The understanding that we gain from children with progeria may be important not just for children or families with progeria, but for the larger population. For example, one of the things that's been recently discovered is that although children with progeria have a mutation that produce a huge amount of this abnormal protein that appears to cause this appearance of premature aging, when people began looking in older and older normal people, one of the things we see is that the amount of this protein goes up in your body. It's like one of the clocks in the body that tells your cells that you're getting older and it may be time to stop working soon. And so if we could begin to target that in normal people, this may be one of those opportunities to actually slow or alter the aging process by changing that inherent clock to cells. The analysis that we did in this clinical trial, looking at the ability to change things like the amount of fat in your body, the bones, the hair, the skin, the ligaments, as well as the cardiovascular system, the major things that go wrong in this, provide an opportunity not just for researchers in progeria, but researchers in each of those fields. A significant proportion of the children, we saw, for example, a significant increase in their ability to gain weight. We saw some significant changes in the cardiovascular system, the part of this disease that worries us the most, since that's the part that accounts for death in virtually all of the children. The exact changes in the cardiovascular system, it's too early to say whether those will ensure that the kids aren't going to have heart attacks as they continue to age, but the facts that we're seeing those changes have to be considered significant.